Her husband had passed away over 10 years ago, and she didn't have a whole lot of friends outside of home or in the family, and I think she was just looking for someone in her life to spend some time with.
More than a decade after losing her husband, Nancy Ray Hartz was ready to find love again. After posting her profile on a dating site for people of a certain age, she met a man who called himself Ray, same as Nancy's middle name, an instant talking point.
I guess they pretty much corresponded several times every day, so it was pretty much just an online relationship. And then he would come and visit with her for 4 days and then would leave again and be gone for 3 or 4 months.
But at age 72, Nancy was looking for more than a long-distance relationship. After about a year with Ray, she spoke up about her need for commitment.
And so she finally wrote an email that she was just about through with the situation.
It only took one day for Ray to show up at Nancy's home in Kingman, Arizona, flowers in hand. Nancy was thrilled, and Ray soon became a fixture in her life. She even bought into his unusual ideas.
He had her convinced that they had to get out of Arizona, had to get out of Kingman because there was lava pits up under the state, and that the financial institutions were no longer stable. But he got her throughout these several months convinced that the world was coming to an end.
Pretty soon, Nancy made some major life changes. Out of the blue, she traded in her Cadillac, had her Social Security payments transferred to a debit card, and sold the home she'd lived in most of her life for $50,000 in cash.
They were going to leave together and start this new life and go find property somewhere else, just wherever the wind took them.
Nancy's kids tried to convince her to at least hold on to the house in case things didn't work out.
I didn't meet Ray until right before they left. He was in the house for a few minutes, and then he was outside unpacking the truck as fast as he could, and it was a very quick in and out. When she left my house that day, I kind of had a feeling in the pit of my stomach that I might never see her again. But there was no stopping her. We tried.
Before Ray drove their mom off into the sunset, Nancy's son wrote down the license plate on his RV and filed it away just in case. For weeks, Nancy was out of touch, even missing her kids' birthdays. Then, 2 months later, an email from Nancy claiming to be happily living off the grid in the mountains of New Mexico.
Just from the tone and everything of those emails, we knew that it wasn't her writing.
When Sherry looked closer, she realized it wasn't even her mom's email address.
Her email address was Arizona Cactus Wren. Well, he had changed it to where it was Arizona Catcus Wren. So the C and the T had been flipped around.
But Nancy's family did notice. Enough for Sherry's sister Denise to go to authorities, who came back with such not great news.
The deputy who took the initial report was able to talk to someone who indicated that they were Nancy and that they wanted to start a new life elsewhere and were not interested in having any further contact with their family.
The Mojave County Sheriff's deputy pretty much dropped it as a case after that, but Denise wasn't about to give up, and neither was her sister.
With no hard evidence, Nancy's family did have a story. Her younger daughter, Denise, took it straight to Daily Miner reporter Doug McMurdo.
I went from, I've seen this movie before, to, wait a minute, I haven't seen this movie before.
After hearing the strange details, Doug started typing, and soon the story of Nancy Hartz was front-page news.
There was an outpouring of concern from the community, and I know that people made Denise aware of, I think, a couple of private eyes, and one of them, Lyle Sharman, actually started working for her, and he was able to, as they say, break the case open.
Lyle Sharman, a private investigator who at the time had 34 missing persons cases under his belt, after meeting with Nancy's kids, he made it 35.
In this case, my action plan was simple. It was try to make contact with Nancy Hartz.
All she was looking for was just someone to love and someone to love her.
Nancy Hart's kids need answers. They hire private investigator Lyle Sharman to make contact with Nancy. He emails her, but gets a quick response from him, Ray.
He went on to say that Nancy was fine, that she no longer wanted anything to do with her family. I responded back to him and said, in either event, I need to speak to Nancy Hartz.
Surprisingly, it pays off. Nancy calls him not once, but twice. The second time, he traces the number.
The phone number came back to an apartment complex in Las Vegas, and we eventually just went to the apartment, knocked on the door. It was obvious within a couple of minutes that Nancy Hartz was not going to be at that location.
The PI realizes Ray had used someone else's information for his online dating account. He schedules another call with Nancy, this time recording it as her kids listen in.
I'm trying to do everything I can to just prove to your daughter that you're okay, so that I can just end this case.
Okay, I have talked to Denise on the phone twice in the past month.
A lie, Denise says. They hadn't spoken. Now Sharman knows it isn't even Nancy on the line.
The first two words out of her mouth, my sister and I looked at each other, and the tears just rolled down our faces. We knew that was not our mother on that recording.
Denise goes back to the sheriff's office and convinces them to investigate. This time, they agree. First, running the license plate number Nancy's son wrote down as her new love drove Nancy off into the sunset. Turns out Ray is actually Robert Lawson Carnigan, a Canadian citizen who's been living illegally in the U.S. since the early 90s. After a multi-state search, deputies find him in Yucca, Arizona, only arresting him on fraud and credit card theft charges unrelated to Nancy Ray Hartz.
None of the allegations had anything to do with the disappearance of Nancy Hartz and other women who went missing that were linked to him in this time frame.
Incredibly, he's living with another unsuspecting woman who, like Nancy, had just sold all of her belongings to start a new life with Ray.
We don't believe she's an accomplice at all. She's been very cooperative, and we certainly believe that she could have been the next victim.
Victim of what? When police search the home, they find several guns, one with the serial number scratched off. For Nancy's daughter, Sherry, it all added up to one very tragic conclusion.
Why couldn't you have just taken all of her money if that's what you wanted? Take it. It's just flipping money. You didn't have to take her life.
On a computer in Carnigan's home, deputies discover another clue, the names and numbers of at least 2 other missing women. He was also in possession of their driver's licenses.
We began trying to find these women to talk to them about whether they knew Nancy, whether there was anything about this gentleman that they could help us with so that maybe we could find Nancy. And what we found was that these ladies are also missing.
Las Vegas local Neva Lindley, last seen in 2011. And Dolan Springs, Arizona resident Verna Clayton, last seen in 2008. Her son speaking with our Fox 10 affiliate by phone.
I get a phone call. If you want anything from the house, go get it. I moved out of Arizona. Click. And that was the last thing I heard from her.
Without bodies, police just couldn't connect Carnigan to murder or the women's fates. Nancy's family feared the worst.
I know what's happened to her. There's not a doubt in my mind what's happened to her. But why did you have to do that? Why? You didn't have to do that. And the sad thing is, she was just looking for someone to love her.
Then 5 years after Nancy's disappearance, those fears are confirmed, as revealed by our Fox 10 Phoenix affiliate reporter, Justin Lum.
Nancy's remains were discovered in May 2019 in the small town of Topok, Arizona. Investigators were able to officially confirm the identity of these remains is Nancy Hartz, and the cause of death being gunshot wounds.
Finally, they knew But would justice be served for Nancy's family or any of the others?
The main suspect in this case is Robert Carnican. Authorities say he was the last person to be seen with Nancy Hartz, but at the time that Nancy was finally identified, Carnican had already died in prison when he was serving a sentence on unrelated charges.
Just 3 months before her remains were ID'd, Robert Carnican died in prison where he was serving a 16-year sentence for fraud, forgery, and theft charges. According to the Mojave County Sheriff's Office, he was the main suspect in her disappearance and a suspect in the cases of Neva and Verna. Their bodies have not been found.
There's so many questions that have been left unanswered with the death of Carnican and never admitting any responsibility to the fate of these women.
Now, Verna Clayton's son can only hope one day his mother will be found too.
I just want closure. I want to know where she is at, or at least her remains, so I can basically put her to rest.